Aisha Kandisha is an ambiguous figure in Moroccan folklore, and her character has evolved to include both malevolent and benevolent aspects. In some versions of the legend, Aisha Kandisha is depicted as a protector of women and children. She is said to have a particular fondness for young girls, whom she watches over and keeps safe from harm. In this version of the story, Aisha Kandisha is seen as a powerful and benevolent force, using her supernatural abilities to help those in need. Other legends describe Aisha Kandisha as a powerful marabout, or religious leader, who the people of Morocco revere. In this version of the story, she is seen as a wise and compassionate figure who can heal the sick and guide those who seek her help. Despite her benevolent aspects, however, Aisha Kandisha remains a figure of fear and fascination for many Moroccans. Her seductive powers and ability to manipulate men are still seen as dangerous, and people continue to tell stories of her evil deeds. In some areas of Morocco, people still perform rituals to appease Aisha Kandisha and avoid her wrath. These rituals often involve offerings of food and drink, as well as prayers and incantations to protect against her power. The story of Aisha Kandisha goes way back, to the 16th century, when she used to be a beautiful woman who was fighting the Portuguese invader in Morocco by seducing soldiers who were killed by accomplices. In retaliation, the Portuguese killed her fiancé, as well as his family according to the versions. Having gone mad, she fled and has been wandering in the forest ever since until found dead. Before being written, the legend is transmitted by oral tradition. If the legend of Aisha Kandisha is inspired by a historical figure that is difficult to determine, the tradition has transformed her into a mermaid ogress, a bogeyman with insatiable sexuality. The story and the name of Aisha Kandisha are always told to provoke fear in small children. She is a symbol in the Moroccan imagination of fantasy, danger, night, and sexuality. Kandisha is commonly considered a linguistic corruption of the Portuguese contessa, countess. In 1926, Edward Westermarck attributed to Aisha Kandisha a more ancient Canaanite origin, comparing it to the Hebrew Kadesha, holy, sacred, designating sacred prostitutes. Westermarck assumes that she was an ancient goddess of fertility, such as Astarte by syncretism. Westermarck thinks to identify the jinn Hamuchio, sometimes husband of Aisha Kandisha, as a survivor of the Carthaginian god Hammam. In 1991, Viviana Easter suggested that Aisha Kandisha was originally a Jewish jinn. Aisha has been called different names over the past. Depending on the regions and time frames, such as Aisha Kandisha, Lala Aisha, Aisha Malad el Wad, Aisha Malad el Murja, Aisha Sudania, and many more. In the cults of the Hamad Shah and the Nawa, formulas invoke the demoness during the Hadra, where she possesses those who enter into a trance. Aisha Kandisha is an ambiguous character. Popular belief gives her the power to possess a person and inflict evil, but the honorific title Lala indicates sanctity, as she helps with exorcisms and matrimonial affairs as a jinn marabout. Aisha is black in the Nawa pantheon, hence the nickname El Sudania too. Aisha has a kalwa, purification basin, in Malay Marai, a place 3 kilometers from Ben Yefu in the commune of Walidia. She is supposed to cure Taba, evil creature, and El Kes, impediment, under the title of Aisha El Baria. In one particular version, Aisha is said to be a woman who had sex in the week that followed the death of her husband, which, in the Muslim culture, is known to be a great sin, since women in Islam should wait 3 months before getting married again to have sex. Having sex in the first week, outside of marriage, has caused her, according to the legends, to be damned by God, and she turned into a mule that has chains around her neck, as if that mule was chained to something before breaking free. That mule would, later on, be called the Mule of Graves in many regions of Moroccan Amazigh culture. Aisha is known to be the Bloody Mary of North Africa. What makes people believe in the myth of Aisha is the fact that she exists, under different names, in every culture. Bloody Mary in the US, the Caller, Enadaha, in Egypt, and many more. In some regions of Morocco and other parts of North Africa, there is a pervasive fear surrounding the name Aisha Kandisha. She is said to be a demon who preys upon men, luring them to their doom with her seductive powers. Legends vary depending on the region, but one thing remains consistent: Aisha Kandisha is a figure of terror who strikes fear into the hearts of those who hear her name. Some men say she appeared to them as a mermaid, while others say she has the legs of a goat. Some men tell stories of how a woman's voice called out to them from the side of a river they were crossing after sundown. Regardless of which version you hear, she is always taking the lives of men. Rumor has it that she devours young men, or lures husbands away from their wives before eating them. Legends also state that she might fall in love with handsome men and possess them in a very specific way. In the urban culture, it is believed that demons can fall in love with humans, from different genders, in the form of possession called the lover jinn. In the myth, it is clearly stated that Aisha Kandisha can do this form of possession over men, and make them hate their wives and other women they might have been attracted to. Here are some true stories told by people who encountered Aisha Kandisha. Story number 1. My name is Mehdi. I live in Tata, a small city in the south of Morocco. I was never aware of the supernatural world. I was aware of the stories that were told about a world that we couldn't see or feel but was very close to ours. But I have never thought about it. Until that one day when my life changed. My sister got married to a man in Marrakesh, and after we were done celebrating the union, she went with her husband to live in his city where he had a job and house. After a few days, my mother and I went there to visit her and check if she was doing all right. We spent the night there, and in the morning, my father called me to go back to Tata to help him with something. We decided that my mother would stay for a few days while I go back to Tata and back to get her. There is normally up to 7 hours drive between Marrakesh and Tata, but since I was driving alone, I took a longer drive than the one I should have, to enjoy the ride and discover different places. Needless to say that this was the worst decision I took in my life. I stopped by different places, on and off the road, and saw the many beautiful places before it started to get dark, and decided to take a straight road to Tata. As I was driving, I suddenly saw a woman in the middle of the road. She had long black hair and was wearing a white dress. I didn't want to hit her, so I slammed on the brakes and swerved to avoid her. I thought I had narrowly missed her, but when I looked in the rearview mirror, she was standing right behind my car. I sat there for a moment, breathing heavily and trying to understand what happened. When I looked through the window, she was gone. No one was there. I dismissed it as my imagination and continued driving, but my heart was pounding in my chest. I had never experienced anything like that before. As I drove further, the road started to get darker and I was feeling uneasy. Suddenly, I heard a voice whispering my name. I turned to look, but there was no one in the car with me. The voice whispered again, but this time it was clearer: Mehdi, turn back and come to me. I was terrified, but at the same time, I was curious. I couldn't resist the temptation and turned the car back. I found myself on an empty road, with no sign of anyone or anything. Suddenly, a woman appeared out of nowhere, and I recognized her instantly. It was the same woman I had seen earlier on the road. But this time, she was standing closer to me, and her gaze was intense. The blood in my veins felt colder all of a sudden. I looked into her face and was stunned by her unmatched beauty. I can't even start to describe how beautiful she was. She smiled at me and asked me to come out of the car. Even though I was terrified, I couldn't say no. When I got out, she got closer to me and slightly touched my face. I started getting all dizzy, and everything started to get darker. I woke up later in the mosque where we used to pray, my father and me. I was tied up, unable to move my arms or legs. I started to look up at everyone around me and I saw my father, the imam of the mosque, and a few of my friends all looking at me. I asked what was going on, and my father said that I was possessed by demon lover, Aisha Kandisha, and that since I got home, I was acting aggressively. He said that even my voice changed sometimes, and they figured I was possessed when my father was praying, and as I heard him recite the Quran, I started swearing at him to stop. After he finished, he called my friends to help him catch me and bring me to the mosque. The imam said that Aisha was telling them through me that I was hers and that she will never leave. Thank God for the power of his words on demons. Story number 2, I'm from the north of Morocco. I apologize for not being able to tell you my name. I want to share my story with Lala Aisha. When I was a teenage girl, I used to have a friend whose mother was a medium. She used to receive clients inside her house and do all sorts of rituals to cure them, in her own words. I was 13 at the time and never knew what these rituals were nor why she would use them. My mother has told me many times to stop being friends with the girl. She even forced me to stop at some point. But I kept being friends with her despite that. I was hard-headed and never liked when someone told me what to do. One day, my friend's mother asked me to come to her house to help her with some chores. I agreed, happy to be of help. When I got there, she asked me to wait in a room while she went to get something from another room. As I sat there, I noticed a strong smell of incense in the air. I asked my friend what that smell was. She acted a little weird and then told me that it was nothing. Her mother came back to disrupt our small chat. She changed her clothes and was wearing a long, black, dress. Girls, I'm counting on you today. We have to clean the place because I am having some people over later and they need everything to be clean. I've never heard about guests who are high maintenance like that. I took on the living room while my friend was cleaning the bathrooms. Suddenly, I heard a strange noise coming from the room where my friend's mother had gone. It sounded like someone was chanting in a language I didn't understand. I tried to get up and leave, but my body felt heavy, and I couldn't move. I heard my friend's voice calling out for me. When she came, she found me looking at the door, paralyzed. She kept calling for me to wake up and worm my daydreams but didn't bother to ask me about my inattention, which seemed odd. It's like she knew what I was looking at. I kept cleaning without saying a word. A few hours after that, the guests started arriving. I excused myself and started dressing up and getting ready to leave. My friend's mother insisted that I should spend the night because it was getting dark. But I told her that my mother would mind. She suggested that she could convince my mom to let me stay, but I rejected the idea. The ceremony started while we were talking. There was a group of now livening up the evening. The women present were starting to dance savagely to the rhythms of the song. The lead singer was calling out through the song to a name very present in Moroccan culture, Lala Aisha. Once he started repeating the name, the women started falling and shouting. In the middle of the crowd, I saw the pale woman again. The others had all fallen to her feet like it was destined for her. But she was looking directly at me. I was terrified and left in a hurry without turning back. As I got home, I tried to shake off the memory of what I had witnessed at my friend's mother's house. But the image of the pale woman with glowing eyes wouldn't leave my mind. I couldn't bring myself to tell my mother about it either, fearing that she would scold me for not listening to her and staying away from my friend's mother. Days passed, and I tried to go about my normal routine, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease that had settled in my chest. I started having nightmares of the pale woman, and I would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat. One night, I awoke to the sound of something scratching my bedroom window. I tried to ignore it and went back to sleep, but the scratching continued, growing louder and more persistent. I finally got out of bed and went to the window, peering out into the darkness. And there she was, the pale woman, staring at me with her glowing eyes. She beckoned me to come closer, but I was too scared to move. I could feel her presence, and it was suffocating. I tried to scream, but no sound came out of my mouth. Suddenly, the scratching stopped, and the pale woman disappeared into the night. I fell back onto my bed, gasping for air, my heart racing. Since that day, I felt like her presence was consistent. Day and night. She was always there. And the feeling of discomfort got a lot more intense. One day at school, there was an event after school hours. They brought a group of Nawa as there was a big Nawa festival in my city. They started with the same song I heard at my friend's house during that ceremony. Once they started calling out to Lala Aisha, I fainted. I woke up in the principal's office. Not knowing what has happened. My mother was talking to the principal and some teachers outside next to the barely open door. I could hear one of them say that my fainting to the summoning of the name of Lala Aisha was a sign of possession. I could also hear my mother agreeing. And thus starts my journey of Ruqya and exorcisms. I saw a different Reiki exorcist once a week. None of them could cure me. Some of them used only Quran, some used holy water, and some even suggested doing a hadra, which turned out to be the same ceremony that I saw at my friend's mother's place. My mother refused that and kicked him out as she strongly believed that this was haram. One day as I was coming back from school, I found my friend waiting for me in front of my house. She seemed bothered. As if she was hesitating to tell me something. After a while, she finally spilled out that what is happening to me is because of her mother. She also said that one of the people who visited her mom was a medium and saw that I had a different type of blood, one that is called Zuri blood in many regions of North Africa. When she saw me staring at that door, she knew what I saw but didn't warn me to leave. After all, she was afraid that she would ruin her mother's trap for me because, in her own words, her mother had called me that day not to help but to trap me in the presence of Lala Aisha who would torment me until I asked for her help. I hated my friend for that, and I was so angry that I picked up a fight with her. In that fight, I felt stronger than ever. I felt like I had someone fighting instead of me. And once I started kicking my supposed friend, I couldn't control what I was doing anymore. The neighbors got involved to separate the two of us, and as I was starting to see again, I saw her face all bloody in the cuts on her arms. I was horrified and glad at the same time. I started hysterically laughing before I fainted again. I woke up in the presence of an old man in what seemed to be a mosque that I didn't recognize. My father was in the corner, with the signs of distress clear on him. There was a young man with a soft but dark beard who started reciting some parts of the Holy Quran as soon as he saw me open my eyes. My father and the old man came to my side as soon as the young man started reciting. The old man smiled at me and told me that I was cured, thanked God. My father couldn't stop his tears as he hugged me saying that he thought he lost me. A few moments after that, Sheikh Abdullah, the old man, came to me and explained that I had been in that mosque for 3 days. The entity that was controlling my body got stronger when I hit my friend and her blood came out. The demoness, then, took full control of my body and washed out of control. That's when the imam of the mosque near my house came and started reciting Holy Quran as I was hysterically laughing. Since then I lost conscience of what I was doing. That same day my father drove me to Ouarzazate, a city in southern Morocco, to meet with him and his young disciple in order for them to start the exorcism that have lasted, according to his words, 3 whole days. Between truth and fiction, there are many myths that some believe and claim as truth and some deny and judge it as unbelievable. Aisha Kandisha is one of them. It is one of the most famous myths that spread throughout Morocco, and soon many writers addressed her story to be among the most famous stories in horror literature. And between ignorance, speculation, and historical charters, you find another side that narrates the truth of Aisha Kandisha, which frightened some and confused others. Throughout history, the uttering of the frightening name Aisha Kandisha has scared even the soul of the bravest ones. But who is this woman who lives in the minds of most Moroccans between nobility and malice? Between demons and kindness? Is she a legend, a witch, a ghost, a demon, or a curse, or just a woman that made of herself a story to remember. If you like to know more about urban legends from all around the globe, hit the subscribe button to follow our channel Terror in the Night, and tell us in the comments which urban legend would you like to know about.